Hi guys, Glenn Hill. I'd like to introduce my friend and client, Charles. I've been training or helping Charles with recovering from an injury, improving his fitness for over the last 2 years. Charles, can you tell me what you'd like to achieve from this video series?
Okay, this is really an introduction today about my experience on the diagnosis of bowel cancer, perhaps a wee bit about the injury I sustained and then came to Glenn. But really it's about focusing on fitness and nutrition and this desire for me to get into control. What I would like to say is that everybody who goes through perhaps the experience I've had in bowel cancer won't have exactly the same experience I've had. And I think that's important to say that. Mine is unique. Some people are very similar to what's happened to me, others are totally different. So what I'm saying now is about me, but the message is about looking after ourselves and being aware of our own bodies. That's the key to this.
Okay, I know this is only video one of the series.
Yep.
Can you give us just some detail of what you want to talk about in this first video?
Okay.
The diagnosis and such
I think
like.
really let's start back perhaps about 4 years ago.
All right.
When I had a quad rupture from my kneecap, had to go through surgery, had a cast on for quite a few weeks, a nasty injury. And when I mentioned to the consultant that I'd done half marathons and 10Ks and 5Ks and stuff, his reply was, well, at your age and your injury, you'll not be able to do that again. And I left there and I thought, well, bugger that. He's not going to do this.
Yeah.
I must say that over the months it was really difficult because I was recovering. I'd lost a lot of muscle, but I was determined to get in touch. So it was about 2 years ago I got in touch with you and explained what had happened here and that I wanted to go through a regime. At that time I couldn't do a mile. So the goals were 1 mile, 5K, 10K and half marathon. And so what I did do was to go through all of that, and I was booked to do the Edinburgh Half Marathon last year in June, I think it was, May or June, I can't remember. I think it was May, back end of May. But while I was training, I was doing 12 miles in a weekend and building up to 13 miles and a little bit more perhaps, because I had this stupid idea about doing a London Marathon at one time. And that actually stopped me when I had the injury. However, at that time I was training and getting fit and going through ideas around nutrition and protein, taking protein drinks and stuff like that at the time. However, what happened in, I think it was the April of last year, when I was out running, and it actually started, I was at the Parkside at Chesley Street running around there, and just after a mile I was a bit like a bear in the woods. I was needing to have a bowel movement, and that just wasn't me. And this continued for certainly 7-10 days. And I'd said to Helen, my wife, I says, hey, the way this is, I can't do the half marathon. There's no way I can do that. And all this time, of course, the GP I'd been getting checked for hemorrhoids. However, I went back to him and I said, look, this is just not me. This ain't on. Of which he then he said it was, as an effect of the hemorrhoids. And he sent me to the RVI. The RVI did a check to see if it was hemorrhoids and found a tumour.
Wow.
And of course I sat down, didn't know how bad it was, but he told me, yeah, you've got a tumour, but we're very successful in curing this, of which naturally I was just traumatised.
Yeah, of course.
And I couldn't believe what he was saying. I thought that was a death knell. I then went and got a scan, and the scan showed the tumour, the size of it and what have you, and where it was located. Didn't have any secondary cancers anywhere else, which was great. But it was there and it was a reasonable size. So I ended up doing 5 weeks of chemo and radiotherapy. And it got into that time, if you may recall, Glenn, at the time I was starting to do the chemo, I said, right, I'm going to get back into this again. And if you recall, we started to do some real intense work in the gym and also out in beautiful places like this down at Beamish. And that really was a key for me to become empowered and not to let cancer be the central focus of my life.
Taking control of yourself.
Absolutely. Really. So that was really setting the scene as to what happened. So it was the symptoms, and the important thing was that if I hadn't have been running, there is a possibility that I wouldn't have got those symptoms as quick, and it would have progressed to a more advanced stage.
So so because you're outside, as you are, it's your nature anyway, being proactive and training all the time and not letting anything beat you, because you're outside running all the time, and your movements, it effectively led to an early diagnosis.
Yeah, apparently what happens is, obviously with the running, with the movements, and with the tumour being there, that's what exacerbated the problem.
Yep.
Absolutely right. So that was the situation, and I'm so pleased that the fact that I was training, that I was running, that I was trying to achieve, actually showed it up more quickly than it would. But if the GPs had been a bit quicker, maybe I could have caught it earlier, but there you go, you don't know these things.
So you think that's enough for video one?
I think for video one, in a lovely place, and we can get back to doing a bit of jogging and getting back to hitting goals.
Yeah, doing some
And
training.
then we'll come back again and get on to number 2, which will give a bit more detail about effects and how important getting fit and staying fit was.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for that, Charles.
Okay, mate.
What I will say to finish this off is, I hear a lot of excuses in fitness, and Charles is an example to anyone, and the people that say they can't do it, from what I've seen of Charles over the last 2 years, never say die attitude is an example to a lot of people. If more people followed Charles's advice and being proactive, the world would be a better place. Thanks, Charles.
Cheers, mate.